Okay, hello and welcome everybody to ISO's Technologies post-summit webinar. We've got a number of people joining, so we're going to give them just a second as I run through today's agenda. So the ISO's team will be sharing a little bit about their summit experience with you all. Some experience such as Developer Day, training sessions, Ship It Live, Expo experience, and keynotes. And last but not least, of course, Summit Bash. We're recording today's webinar and we'll make it available to everybody who registered so you can share it with your colleagues. But we want to thank everybody again for your interest and attendance today. Before we get into the Summit experiences, here's some very light overview of ISO's technology. ISO's technology is a consulting firm that helps teams collaborate, communicate, and work more efficiently. We're passionate about using emergent technologies to solve real-world business problems. And of course, Atlassian and their product portfolio are a big part of that. A little bit about what we do. ISO's technology provides a wide range of professional Atlassian services, ranging from health checks to product implementations such as ITSM, DevOps, portfolio management, all the way to complete Atlassian managed services. So if you have any pressing Atlassian initiatives, please don't hesitate to reach out to our team. So let's get into this. My name is Danny Riley. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for ISO's Technology, and I'm gonna share a little bit with you about my Summit experience. And my Summit experience is focused around the Expo. So the Expo experience. If you don't mind. For those of you who attended Atlassian Summit, you know it's an immersive week-long experience jam-packed with training sessions, certification exams, community sessions, keynotes, learning tracks, and capped off with Atlassian's Summit Bash. Now, if you're somewhat of a swag hound, you might be asking, what about the Expo? And again, you're in luck because this section is focused on just that. So let's get into some of the more unique Expo experiences. I'm going to say that correctly at least one time. So the first one that I noticed when I was walking around the Expo was the research workshop. So Atlassian is all about teams, but they're also very interested in the individual journeys within those teams. The research workshop experience is about pulling those experiences out of the attendees and sharing them with others. So when I stopped by the workshop experience, I had the opportunity to snap a Polaroid, of course, and write down what I was interested in, which is more about team culture and learning about that while I was at Summit. So the next board that I saw was the IT Quest board, which was a great chance to kind of explore the landscape of IT teams at Summit. Everything from the incident crater that you're going to see there, through the chasm of trust, over the rickety bridge to the stakeholder hills. Along the way are notes sharing the individual experiences that are the foundation of the team dynamics and the culture of these teams. Of course, I had a chance to talk with some folks around there and learn a little bit more about what they were trying to get out of Summit, which made it really a great experience at understanding why people came so far to come to Summit. The next thing that I noticed as I was walking the floor were the Expo parks. Now, you don't really expect to see parks at a conference, but at Atlassian Summit, you will. In fact, they have 4 of them. They have California, Amsterdam, Sydney, and all related to the corporate headquarters in each company, or in each country, I should say. So the attendees could jump on a stationary bike and find themselves riding through Amsterdam Park for a quick escape from all the hoopla that is Vegas. Or attendees could take a seat and swing on a swing and go back in time and kind of take another break from the conference floor. Again, these are subtle distractions and also educational experiences that allow you to step away from the vendors and typical things that you'll see on the conference floor. And talking with people in these parks, it made a nice, relaxing experience for them as they take a break. The one thing that was new to Summit this year was the news desk, featuring live streaming Twitter interviews and a bit of a live audience as well. Our very own Mike March and client Jesse Smith, who's the Senior Clinical Research Coordinator at Washington University, They both showed up at the news desk to talk a little bit about their Summit talk titled, How We Manage a Multi-Year, Multi-Drug Clinical Trial. And if you haven't had a chance to see all of the lectures or talks at the conference, you should definitely visit Summit's website, and they recorded all those and made them available to you. But again, this was something nice, something out of the ordinary that allowed people to come up, take some information in about what's going to be at Summit. So of course, it's an expo. There's going to be vendors. In fact, there's 130 Atlassian vendors and solution partners at Summit. And they literally provide hundreds of Atlassian experts and third-party vendors to help your team get the most out of the Atlassian core products and additional features from marketplace apps. So visiting with the vendors provides a lot more than just swag. You can get your questions answered on site, or even gather tips and recommendations for digging deeper on your own post-Summit experience. Additionally, there's not really any hard selling at Summit. That's why we like it. It feels much more like a community event, and very friendly from all the vendors that are included. Now, there are so many other mini experiences, some that you'll hear about today, and I didn't have time to touch on all of them on the expo floor, such as the training theater, certification lounge, ecosystem lounge, Atlassian Product Center, Enterprise Lounge, and much more. But I encourage you, if you haven't had a chance, to visit Summit to experience some of these things for your own. I literally had one client message me during the Summit Expo and say, hey, Danny, I really want to start my career focused on Atlassian products. Where do I start? I'm amazed at what I'm seeing, I'm learning here at Summit. And that's just a little bit of what you're going to experience while you're on the expo floor there at Summit. So I'm going to turn this over to my sales manager, Leah Wood, for the next mini Summit experience.
Thank you, Danny. Hello, everyone. I'm Leah Wood, Business Development Manager at Isos Technology. Thank you guys again so much for joining us today for our recap of Summit. And I'm going to be covering some keynote highlights of Summit and the Bash event. I have highlighted some of the most exciting takeaways from the main talk that we'll be covering here shortly. Next. Thank you. So Summit was obviously amazing this year, and the general session was the exact same. If you happen to miss it, there is Atlassian live Summit talks that are on the website. And I believe we'll be sharing this deck out later, so I have live links in here for you as well. There were so many amazing announcements, and this year the global use of Atlassian is higher than ever. And as a result, Atlassian has been able to invest in their products and create even more options for teams and uses for their products. The CEOs and the head of their product teams this year announced some pretty incredible advancements in the applications. So let's dive into my favorite ones. So this year, Atlassian focused on people, place, and places and products as the main components of Summit. And each session is focused on how teams of all different shapes and sizes can use the applications around the world. There were over 100 different sessions at Summit that specifically focused on how teams can work together, with over 5,000 people from over 46 countries. Some of the most exciting announcements during the keynote for me personally were about the Atlassian playbooks for IT. They're how-to guides of how your teams help work better together, and they added 8 new plays specifically focused on IT teams. These playbooks were developed working with the IT teams at Atlassian, and there's a live link in that slide for you to browse through after the webinar. The other one is Agile Craft, that is now Jira Align. Steve Elliott and his team of people were super enthusiastic during the keynote, and we're super excited to join the Atlassian family and bring a wonderful way for teams to have visibility across dozens of Jira projects and hundreds of teams across an enterprise. I don't want to give too much away here. My colleague Larry Cummings is going to go more in depth about Jira Align a little later in this webinar, but we at Isos are super excited about what Jira Align means for teams here in the near future. Atlassian also focused on being cloud first. Oh, sorry, real quick, Danny, go back. Yeah, thanks. Atlassian also focused on being cloud first, but they're still investing heavily in their server and data center products. And so that's what the next slide is going to cover, is some of the major announcements for the server and data center products with the release of Jira 8.0. Go ahead, Danny. All right, so for Jira Software and Jira Service Desk favorites, so some of the serious improvements that have come to server and data center are around the platform releases. So the 8.0, 4.0 for Jira Service Desk, and so forth. So the most exciting for those are going to be based around performances. 31% faster JQL searches. Boards are now loading 2 times faster than they ever did before. And indexing is also faster than ever. And the most exciting to me, I think, is the mobile app. It's been available for cloud for quite a while, and so having it come to Jira Server is incredible. The most exciting for Bitbucket, there's now code insights inside Bitbucket, so teams can stay in the flow of their work on a day-to-day basis and not have to jump in between applications. They've also introduced mirroring farms, so you can stand up a cluster of servers behind a load balancer and distribute the load of the build systems and teams in, that are local to those regions. So mirroring was huge a couple years ago, and now they're introducing mirroring farms, which is really exciting. And also you can use CDN, have CDN set up for all of the products, all the Atlassian products, not just Bitbucket. You can do this with AWS templates if you wish as well, but setting up these CDNs, it'll feel like you have a server right underneath your desk. The performance and speed of the applications will be higher than ever. Given that most organizations are using cloud products in their everyday, kind of like Salesforce, Atlassian knows cloud is the way of the future. They have increased their user experience with Jira and Confluence already in the cloud, and are continuing to do so every single day. First and foremost, renaming your URLs is now possible with a single support ticket within Atlassian. This used to include a migration process that used to be lengthy and costly. So this is super exciting for teams that are needing to change URLs at the drop of a hat. Atlassian has also set up worldwide coverage of data centers. They now have 6 data centers around the world, so teams experience faster uses within Atlassian Cloud. Performance in cloud is also increasing, so it's 50% faster just in general use, 80% faster for backlogs reloading, and the navigation in between boards and projects is 100% faster than it ever used to be. Also, administration and administering multiple products is now easier with the use of Atlassian's Admin Hub. The built-in domain capture, you can see every user from your company, edit details, or export users for bulk editing, and they're also adding Google Cloud and Microsoft Active Directory federated services to the SSO options with Atlassian Access, which is super exciting. Atlassian understands that security is a major concern for their teams, so they're also teaming up with McAfee, Symantec, Netscope, and BitGlass to make it easier to secure your Atlassian cloud instances. And the most exciting announcement was the new product from Atlassian, which is Cloud Premium. So they have added advanced roadmaps to Cloud Premium to help you visualize project status right out of the box. You can track dependencies, mapping and breaking down work and hierarchical tasks. And they also have the capacity for building potential delivery dates based on historical performances for software delivery. There's also a super admin key with Cloud Premium. This grants a select group of admins elevated access over the content of the instance. When someone leaves or is on vacation, you can ensure that this can still be accessed by appropriate team members. There's also advanced analytics of Confluence, so you can gain visibility into who your top users are, top actions taken within the application, and spaces, all within one tab within Confluence. And their big promise, Atlassian's big promise, is to back this Cloud Premium with 3 S's: an SLA of 99.9% uptime, unlimited storage, and with premium support, 24/7 access that's ready to help you with absolutely anything. Cloud Premium is still, oh yeah, thanks, Danny. Before I jump into Bash, Cloud Premium is still a new product. We're still excited to evaluate it ourselves. As we start understanding more about the application, you'll see more updates in blogs in the months to come. Now for Atlassian's Bash. Real quick, this is just going to be a series of photos, right? So Bash, if you guys were able to go, was super fun. It was at the Mandalay Bay Beach Park. Danny, go ahead and keep kind of scrolling through. Yep. It was a little chilly out there for me, but the B-52s were able to play. People had a really great time with it. This is our very own Larry Cummings enjoying the B-52s and jumping into the water towards the end of the night. We really love how much effort Atlassian puts forth into the event every single year, and we were grateful that we got to spend some time with our clients as well. And after this, I'm going to hand it off to Jojo Salazar. Thanks, Jojo.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. So I'm Jojo Salazar and I am the social media voice of ISO's technology. So if you're following our social media channels, I've spoken to you. So during Summit, I partook in kind of finding out how Atlassian goes beyond tech teams. And I was kind of stuck at the booth most of the time, so I didn't have a chance to see any of the live sessions. But in fact, like Danny was mentioning, there are sessions online that are free to access. So I got home, recovered from Vegas, and I took a look at a couple of those sessions. And I just wanted to share a couple things that I learned. So first off, stepping into the world of tech was new to me. And honestly, I was a bit intimidated when I first started working with Atlassian tools. But go figure, I wasn't the only one. So I wanted to share from one of the presentations some things that I learned, and that is using Confluence as your intranet. Confluence is one of Atlassian's tools that can be used for announcements, such as what's for lunch today. Actually, one team had an icon on their homepage that was continuously changing. It was designating what was for lunch, and people could opt in. They could also personalize their orders. They could click on that icon and they could say, hey, this is what I want, this is what I don't want. And I thought that was kind of a cool option to get everyone on board and give people an option to personalize and partake in eating together and being together. Create your community is a big deal, and I think Confluence allows you to do so. You can also match your company branding by using your logo and also picking a color scheme to match that. And that kind of makes your personal space for your employees feel more aligned with who you are as a company, and it provides familiarity to all of your colleagues. So that space can be used for meeting notes, project plans, decisions, and just one thing that I really learned throughout all of those sessions was making sure to keep up, stay up to date, and in order for you to have a successful intranet by using Confluence, users need to come back and stay on top of everything. So keep your intranet alive and thriving. Statistics say that 87% of people want to work for a transparent company. And by now, I'm sure you guessed that an intranet can be a ticket to building that transparent company. Sharing information where your employees already, already are there, you're going to go ahead and save time. You're not going to have context switching back and forth, different outlets. FOMO no more. They're not going to fear for missing out, and everyone has access to those posts. And you can also, again, have your own private space as well. So that's definitely helped me working remote in San Francisco, connect with the team abroad. We're in different cities, so different time zones. And so it's been really helpful keeping in touch with the team and making it feel like we're one. And so I do some of the photography. So here's a couple images I'd like to share. And off to you, Larry.
Thanks, Jojo. So my name is Larry Cummings. I'm a senior Atlassian consultant at ISO's Technology, and I'm going to talk today about AgileCraft and what I learned about it. I do a lot of work with teams on portfolio management and tracking large numbers of projects from like a stakeholder perspective. So I was very excited about the AgileCraft acquisition, and this was our first summit since that acquisition was announced. The entire AgileCraft team was there. They had a couple of different booth areas set up in the expo floor so you could get demos. They had about a 10-minute slot in the Wednesday morning keynote from the former CEO and now product lead for Jira Align. So it's a very exciting product. It is standalone software as a service offering that can integrate with Jira, either cloud server or data center, but it is a separate app. It doesn't run like as a plugin inside Jira. But it's exciting to me simply because it has filled a very critical need, which is for very large enterprises. You don't have a good way of having a scaled view of your entire product portfolio in Jira. You can get a lot of what I'll call more objective and tactical information, but when you're looking for goals and strategies and why we decided to fund an effort and how we're doing against those outcomes over a period of years, it's always been a little light. And this acquisition is really instrumental in filling that gap. So as was already mentioned, it's no longer AgileCraft, it's now Jira Align. And it's speaking again to the product's strength. It's created by a former CTO that was having a hard time reporting up to his C-level suite on, like, why are we funding all these initiatives and how are they performing and how can we reallocate our portfolio, to map to our new strategies. So here are a couple of the key features. And believe me, this is just the highlights. I spent about an hour and a half each day of the expo at the booth, just watching the demos and asking questions. And it's a very deep and complete product for, all of these key areas here. I think my favorite aspect was the ability to take customer feedback, market feedback, internal analysis, map that out into a strategy recommendation, use that to build the case for the investment in that part of the portfolio, and then shift into, okay, now we're going to track that execution all in one tool. Investment versus actuals capabilities are quite substantial. So I was really, really interested in that and found it to be very, very exciting. So a couple of other things to note. It combines capabilities of Tempo timesheets or Tempo budgets and also Atlassian's own portfolio for Jira. I wouldn't consider this to be a competitive product with those two products. It's actually a different need that it's filling. So I think Portfolio and Tempo still fill their own unique needs. In this case, the primary audience is really the product strategy team and the C-level suite for Jira Align. You don't have your structure in Jira Align is not focused on, like a project or, like a specific, product code base or something like that. It's really like a whole product based focus with things like Agile release trains and other scaled Agile concepts, all presented to like a product owner or a product manager. And it's a very customizable dashboard kind of approach to that problem. So it's a very different audience. And so I don't think it really competes with Portfolio or Tempo in those areas. The big emphasis is really on that scaled Agile framework approach, SAFe. And they support all the different SAFe configurations from essentials to large scale SAFe. They also support disciplined Agile, less, and a bunch of other scaled product portfolio management methodologies. So it's fairly agnostic, which is one of the reasons I'm kind of glad they've taken the word Agile out of the name and made it Jira Align, because it's really about aligning your strategies. ISOS is very excited, as was mentioned earlier. We're actually ramping up as AgileCraft becomes fully integrated into the Atlassian partner ecosystem. We're going to be actively working with the AgileCraft team to help Jira Align be a great success, and I know it will be. So Tracy, unfortunately, couldn't be with us today, so I'm going to talk about the training experience as well, but everybody wave at Tracy. Hi, Tracy. Okay. The 2 days before the expo floor opened, Monday and Tuesday, there was Atlassian University classes conducted at Summit. And then all during the expo, there were expo workshops and training theaters. There was a wonderful theater area set up over by the training and certification section. And there also was a certification exam room set up for anyone that wanted to become an Atlassian certified professional. And that was a really completely integrated kind of a presence of Atlassian University and training at this year's expo. The last time they did anything like this was at the Summit in San Jose in 2017, and they really stepped it up quite a bit. We had over 2,000 people participate in the classes and in the expo workshops, and over 100 people took their certification exams. Unfortunately, I can't tell you how many people passed, but that was a pretty impressive participation, especially when you consider that the attendees at the expo were 5,000. So almost, like 40% of the attendees participated in either the classes or the expo workshops. In terms of the university classes that were taught on Monday and Tuesday, it was a 20% increase in attendees from 2017. Probably the highest demand was among people that were looking to improve their admin skills or admin skills. Sorry, there's a typo on that slide. And people that were team leaders. I actually taught the JIRA reporting and dashboard class for the 2 days, and that was very much a course focused for team leaders. We track the satisfaction with the training classes using the Net Promoter Score metric, and we scored a 36 across all the Atlassian University classes, which is actually in the good range. And then for people that went to the free expo workshops during the expo, those scored a 60, which is in the excellent range. And then we also added a new certification right before Summit called the Atlassian Master Certification. And this is for anybody that's, that holds 4 of the 5 ACP core certifications. So that was a nice announcement and a great way to recognize the certified professionals that have covered, like 80% of the tools through their passing of the certification exams. Anecdotally, the class I taught was just dynamite. Here's a couple of student feedback points, and also some feedback I got from the Atlassian University staff on how our class went. We had myself as the instructor, and then Tracy and Mary presenting or helping with the lab environments. And it's just so nice to be able to present to a group of students in such a large setting. Normally in Atlassian University classes, 15 to 20 people, but we had 50 people in the Monday class and 80 people in the Tuesday class, and it was just dynamite. Everybody was really engaged and learned a lot. And if you could hit next. Oh, you don't have permission to see the video, sorry. The video on the left that's blank there is, they did these pipe cleaner, you can kind of see some of them on the table there. They did these pipe cleaner sculptures during the lab time. If you got finished early, you could make a sculpture and then you got registered to do a free prize. And the sculptures that the students created were just amazing. It was probably the most tangible way to notice how creative and engaged the students were, is how much effort they put into their little side projects during their classes. And of course, there's my selfie with my Tuesday class. So I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to training at future summits. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Larry. So my name is Rodney West. I'm a functional lead at ISOS Technology. This was actually the first summit that I've attended. Talking to Leah beforehand, she's like, I thought you've been at all of them, because, I've been involved in planning for them for the years. And as Marge will talk about later, finally one of my white whales was slain at this summit. But one of the things that I focused on here was actually, I'm going to sessions on scaling and talking to people about scaling. So, like Larry mentioned, and Leah mentioned, the introduction of Jira Line, that was really great to hear about. I attended quite a few sessions on that, and actually, watched some of the demos in the booth, some of the talking, and it was interesting to correlate some of that with some of the safe work that I've been involved in recently. But some of the other sessions I went to, I was focusing more on some of the things that I do in my role as a functional lead, and one of them, the session, A Journey to Enterprise Agility. That one was taught by Mark Idwani, who is the IT director for Johnson & Johnson. And since I've gotten back, I've actually recommended that session to everybody on the functional lead team. I've recommended it to a few of our tech people. It was a case where Johnson & Johnson was going through a huge merge migration. It was 15 different Jira instances over tens of thousands of users, all into basically a single data center. And if anybody has done a merge migration, they understand some of the complexities there. And I was really interested to see what happened at a very, very large scale. Like what approaches that were taken. And Mark's Mark's presentation was excellent here. He actually focused, a lot on a lot of the upfront work that you do, not just dealing with, collisions and things you might run into, but with actually taking this as a point in time to actually do some house cleaning, getting rid of things that, even though they're not going to conflict, they've added to the cruft that's in your system. And I actually highly recommended this to anybody, whether you're scaling 2 instances or 20, right? It is a great presentation for getting some tips and best practices, and you'll see some pain points. Outside of that, there were a couple of other company specific ones I went to. I went to the Herding Wild Ducks from IBM. That was where, they went from not having Jira to how they're actually introducing it into the organization. And kind of some of the complexities they've run into with trying to get essentially govern Jira and Jira offering in place, and how they actually have got the organization to buy in. And really the final corporate one I went to was the self-healing at scale. And that was more of a case, it was kind of a way to really do some predictive work inside of your system, where when your Jira is scaled and things start to go sideways, right, it can take longer to recover from P1s. And issues may not bubble up as quickly with what's going on in the system. That presentation, though, they actually went through some scripting that they had done to give you a heads up that something was about to go wrong, and also to allow Jira to kind of try to right itself before actually a P1 occurs. Next. So a couple of the other sessions I went to, as somebody with a development and IT background, I really like going to some of the tech sessions. So the Bigger, Better Bitbucket, that was a session on, it was actually one of the lightning talks on scaling your Bitbucket instance, and some of the things to look at, some of the things to log, and just some of the strategies that you may want to use to make sure that your Bitbucket does perform at scale for you, and so that your developers actually stay happy while they're working. The second one, the top 10 tips for securing and scaling Atlassian Cloud, that was from more of the Jira administrator side, and it was a bunch of steps that you can take, to make sure that your Jira from the administration side, that everything is actually running smoothly, and as you bring on users, you're not having projects step on each other. You're basically not having people munge your environment. The interesting thing with this is, even though it's got cloud listed in there, this is a session that there are a lot of takeaways that you could use for server, for data center, basically for any size Jira instance. I would actually recommend watching that presentation, because it gives you some really good administrative tips, regardless of what your Jira situation is. Next. Okay, and one of the other finals that I went to was scaling with trust. So on Developer Day, I went to a session on what developers should consider in relation to GDPR. And from a functional lead side at ISOS, we've had quite a few discussions on some of the impacts that GDPR has had, some of the changes that have had to be made, and how those are going to impact some of the things that we're having to do with clients. So this session was, at least from my perspective, was pretty interesting, because it went through some of the decision and policy making steps that Atlassian has actually taken to make sure that as privacy laws are evolving around the world, and people are more aware of, this is my data, how is it being used, and if a company has it, how can I ensure they're using it in a way that I want them to, or how can I have them stop using it? Those are concerns that Atlassian is very forward looking on in their products. And this was actually just a really interesting session from the perspective of the decision making and the discussions that happen behind the scenes at Atlassian to guarantee that their customers' data is protected properly. And with that, I think I'm going to hand it over to Mary Ramirez.
Thank you, Rodney. Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Ramirez, and I work as a support lead here at ISOS Technology. During Summit, I had the pleasure of going to my favorite track, which is People, Practices, and Culture. The first session that I attended is it's called The Pipeline Problem and Other Myths About Workplace Diversity by John Paz at Atlassian. And it was very interesting to hear his perspective, his upbringing, and his career, and how his experience has truly made him empathetic to others. And a few things that he shared with us, but most importantly, what I would like to share with you is that he told us that the pipeline problem is everyone's problem. And everyone, whether you're an individual, a team leader, or an organization leader, you can take action today to make your workforce reflect just that. And so another session that I attended is called How to Be a Healthy, Happy, and Productive Remote Worker from Stella Garber over at Trello. And she provided us with some tips that make Trello employees very successful, because if you don't know, they are actually fully remote. And so she told us that every team has a set list of rules that they've collaboratively worked on, and they also practice the rule of over communicating. And this is important for remote teams because sometimes little details get lost in Slack messages. And so they always practice either sending it in email, sending it in Slack, or mentioning it during Scrum so that everyone's aware of what's going on. And then last but not least, she reminded us that being a remote worker is great, but you also have to take time to take care of yourself. So whether that's taking a walk or going to the gym or even getting some sunlight. And then the last session that I attended that I really enjoyed is called Building a Culture of Trust and Transparency Through Confluence by Katie Burke at HubSpot. And so she told us a few things that they do at HubSpot that really make their culture different than other organizations by using Confluence. And so it was very neat to hear that they've created a code of conduct that's available both internally and externally. And this is cool, especially for an employee or a person who's looking to work for HubSpot. They can see what the organization is about. And then another page that she spoke about was the failure forum. And so this allows employees to provide positive and negative feedback through a Confluence page. And then management can take a look at it and assess what's going on and make changes. And then another way they use Confluence is their co-founder created a space called Ponderings. And so team members go into the space and share personal stories. And this allows remote workers or people who are usually not working together have the opportunity to learn about each other and make those connections. And so I really enjoyed the track and I encourage everyone to check it out. But I'm going to pass this over to March.
Hello, I'm Mike March, and this is, I don't know, I think my 7th summit probably. And I'm going to focus on 2 quick things here. First, next slide, please, I pretty much focused on the DevOps track when I had time to step away from the booth and do other things. And what I liked about the focus on the DevOps track here is they focused on DevOps and getting the culture into your company. So there was some meat on a lot of these presentations, but it was really more about culture. So in the next slide here, and my favorite actually is one that I want to talk about was the merging ITSM and DevOps into your company, because when we here at ISOS help a lot of organizations do either like help desk or ITSM stuff and DevOps, there always seems to be this conflict between the 2 concepts. And we have trouble sometimes explaining how they can cooperate or don't cooperate, those 2 concepts. And this presentation, it was goofy to hear because they scripted it like a conversation. But even with that, it was still great. They did a good job kind of rolling out how the new version of the ITSM, I think 4, and DevOps, how they kind of work, like how there maybe was contention in the past and now going in the future, the ITSM spec has kind of adapted itself to live within DevOps and they complement each other. So we've always kind of preached that here, but now it's as true as ever. And this was a great, if you have a chance, please go view that presentation. It's Ian Buchanan and some other guy from Atlassian. I don't know. Oh, you can see in that slide there. Anyways, next slide. Also, there was a great presentation about Opsgenie. Opsgenie is a newish acquisition from Atlassian or by Atlassian, and we are implementing it here, and we're helping other clients do it. But it was great to see how Opsgenie basically tuning it to reduce the noise from everything that you get from either things from Jira, email, whatever it is. It helps when you have like this on-call culture in your company and you're running 24/7 operations. Opsgenie, they really went into how it can help make it so only the stuff that needs to be acted on bubbles up to people who have to respond to those events. It's great. Next slide. There was another presentation where they talked about Bamboo and Bitbucket pipelines. And the takeaway that I got from that is you always hear from Atlassian, they're a cloud first company, which is true, and they will be at some point in the future cloud. But Bamboo is the little application that could just when you think it's down, their team does a great job rolling out awesome features, ones that makes me love Bamboo more. And so this presentation was like more evidence that both Bitbucket pipelines and Bamboo both live, both are great, and both for helping operate your DevOps pipelines. And then finally, there was a presentation. Someone's like, this was yet another but good presentation on someone's journey into using into implementing DevOps in the organization. Great presentation. Again, I go, as everyone said here on the call or on this presentation, go to the DevOps track and watch all the videos. You'll get a lot out of it. Next slide, please. And as what I mentioned, of course, everyone's brought up my talk there. It happened to be my favorite talk. What was good about it, first of all, this is one that we, or however we say it, we here at ISOS we've asked to have this done for, I think, 5 straight years. Finally, Atlassian picked it up, and they were super great about it. They were very helpful about it. Jesse Smith and I gave this talk, and it was great, and people got a lot out of it. Although it was the last talk of the last day, the people who were there asked great questions, and it's the main thing about it is we use Jira to manage this drug trial, which is coming to an end right now, and it did a great job of doing this multi-year study, and it really kept it on track. And the people that we helped implement it for, the Washington University, they loved how it worked for them. So I encourage you to watch that talk. I don't even like to watch myself talk, but I watched it twice. That's great. And that's it. So who is next?
Me.
Oh, Jaime.
Yep. Thanks, Rich. I'm Jaime Romero, Atlassian technical consultant here. I've been working on a lot of the development here at ISOS and doing some custom solutions there. The next slide, yep. So I attended Developer Day along with Rodney. It was the first ever Developer Day at Summit, so invited in the developer community to Summit and getting them, it allowed me to attend all the other great sessions and tracks that people before me have discussed. So there's 2 tracks. They split Developer Day into 2 tracks for fundamentals and advanced. So fundamentals covered, introduction to development and with Atlassian products, and then advanced kind of went over some of the more in-depth talks, kind of based on performance and some other neat tricks. There's 450 people that attended the Developer Day. It was on Monday, the first day of the week for Summit, and yeah, it was very cloud focused from what I've looked over, and I realized it was very cloud invested in the cloud. You go to the next slide. So yeah, so for the fundamental track, started off with how to get started with building cloud apps. So there's two supported frameworks for developing in the cloud. There's the Atlassian Connect Express, which uses Node.js, and Spring Atlassian Connect, which is written in Java, and helps devs get started and handling a lot of the initial requests between your app and Atlassian's cloud platform. So it's a good way to get started. Next was had a couple sessions based on authentication with JWT and OAuth 2.0. So those authentication methods are used in cloud as well. It was a good in-depth look on how these authentication methods work, and kind of answered some questions for developers to see how Atlassian uses it in their cloud platform. There's a Confluence Cloud macro demo. Some Atlassian developer is kind of showing off how you can create a macro, how to extend Confluence, pages, which is the main feature of Confluence, and how to extend that with macros and rendered a table of users. So it gave kind of intro developers to kind of some ideas to how to extend Confluence. And then for Jira Cloud, there's a similar demo going over Jira issues. They said that 2.7 million views per month are on Jira issues and Jira Cloud. And so they're kind of showing the different areas you can extend with an add-on and the Jira view and the issue view. And they also gave some examples of existing popular add-ons, how they've extended it to kind of give developers, get them to get brainstorming on their own ideas, how to integrate their own platform, their own products. And then Atlas Kit is had a quick talk on Atlas Kit, which is a React component library. It extends, use React to, has Atlassian design languages and guidelines built into this component library. So it makes it simple for developers to kind of hurry up and get started, to start playing with the components and adding it to your add-ons. Next slide. For the advanced, the first one that was interesting to me as the main kind of server data center developer was going over Jira performance tips. So let us know that in Premier support, when they get performance issues, 38% of performance issues are related to memory. And so they kind of give some tips on how you can increase your searches, reusing objects, using pagination, kind of best practices kind of for Java as well, on how to increase performance and reduce the amount of memory your apps can take, since apps can bring down, applications like custom developed add-ons can bring down Jira. They're sending us no. That, and then 21.4% of performance issues in Jira are related to databases. So also giving tips on creating new, being aware of not creating too many new connections, limiting the connections on your applications, and then doing cleanup jobs for your tables, your database tables, so you're not using a lot of time and memory as you're searching through your tables. Going serverless was another interesting talk. Discuss how you could use services like AWS Lambda or Google Cloud Function and other similar tools to extend your app very easily, where you can kind of save you money as well. You put your code in one little function in the AWS service, and they kind of recommended that you keep your AWS Lambda functions very focused and on a specific task to kind of minimize cost and also increase the performance. Puppeteer is another quick framework intro that they went over, using little short scripts and headless Chrome API to automate screenshots, code coverage, and performance application on your applications. And then last, one of the developers went over Atlas Kit and how you could put that into your P2 plugin, which is the server data center framework for add-ons, and how to use Atlas Kit there. So how to use React in your server data center add-ons, which usually isn't used, is only used in cloud, but they kind of give an intro on how to develop that in server and data center. I think that's it for me. Head it over to Thad.
Great, thank you, Jaime. I am the last one to go, so I'm going to kind of buzz through this a little bit quickly. I'm Thad West, CEO at ISOS, and it was same with March. I think we've probably been to the same number of summits. It was a good time. What I focused in on was Ship It, and Ship It is typically how they end Summit, so it's the last thing at Summit. This year they ended it on Bash, but Ship It is the last talk in the main hall. So if we can go to the next. So basically, Ship It is the way they innovate their innovation days. So generally how it works across the US, they do once per quarter at every Atlassian office, they have a 24-hour hackathon. And so that happens at Summit. What they do is they bring the teams there and they start to do their team formation at Summit, and they start their process there. So you actually, as a visitor at Summit, you can be part of that process and see the teams at work. So the ideation, so there are no rules. You can do and work whatever you want to work on. It doesn't have to be technology based. It doesn't have to be product focused. One of the things a team did was they went and changed all the incandescent bulbs to more efficient CFLs around the office, and that's how they spent their 24 hours. And that was good for the company and good for the organization and good for everyone in general. So there are no rules, so it's kind of interesting to see what they come up with. On the team front, they encourage you to go seek out other team members. So you go and find people across the organization that maybe you don't interact with on a daily basis, and you guys come together and see what you can do. From the timing perspective, so in a regular Ship It experience, you've got 24 hours, and that is you stay the night in the office, you work through the night, you probably eat a lot of pizza and maybe drink some beer and sodas. Probably not beer, you'd fall asleep. But it's 24 hours across Summit. They start it on the day of Summit. So they have a little bit more time. So they're not working them overnight in the expo halls, but they roughly get 24 hours to do completion. So that's kind of how they run their Ship Its. Next slide. So how it plays out at Summit is, we'll walk through the experience a little bit. So this is the Portals team. So this is a team that they call themselves Portals. And what they do is they have a couple people come out on stage and present. And these are developers. These are people that are not normally used to standing on the biggest stage Atlassian has, potentially staring down 5,000 customers. And they get up there and they do a fantastic job. But it's really important that they get up there and they do their sales pitch. And there's a lot of humor. And the most successful teams are the ones that can pitch their idea the best. So we're looking at the Portals team pitch their idea. Next slide. And so their idea was, if anybody's used the page properties macro in the page properties report in Confluence, it's been there probably since Confluence 2, and it works the same. It's really kind of goofy and ugly, but it's really, really useful. What this team did was they brought a very nice user interface to it. They brought a lot of cell formatting. They brought table formatting. So what they basically did was say, hey, the page property macros are useful, but not very intuitive. And, we can do a lot more with them. And to see what these guys did in 24 hours, it was phenomenal. The reason I'm leading with it is it's the one that I voted for, but we don't know who did it. But so they walk you through their solution, and then they make a plea as to why you should vote for them. So that was the Portals team. And then there were 3 other teams. We'll just kind of walk through those real fast. The Daft Punks, so they were a data scientist team. And so they did a lot of data analytics around Jira. It was an interesting approach. We'll go next. the R team. So they did Jira roadmaps and apps. So they were a little bit behind the 8 ball because they were working on features that were just getting announced at Summit. So they had to kind of work in secrecy. But they had some really interesting and neat road mapping tools on the Jira platform. And I hope they see the light of day, but there are no guarantees. And then the Krakens, so this team did a great job. They basically brought centralized license visibility to crowd. So you can see, as opposed to having to export and do spreadsheets and do all sorts of analytics to figure out where your user count is and who you can drop off the system to stay in your user count. They actually brought metrics to it, things like, hey, here's users that are users, but they haven't logged in for 6 months. So it started to give you some really good analytics to managing your user count, which was really kind of neat. So the Krakens won, and I think, you know, it was really cool to see. So that was the one about the crowd, the one we just mentioned. And what was really cool is they actually shipped it. So it is an add-on in the marketplace for free. You can go grab it and add it. That was one of their compelling pitches was, hey, we actually shipped it. Everybody else is just working in a demo environment. And you can see that they get this giant trophy. There's a lot of bragging rights and pride that go along with Ship It. And so, you know, it does really help out Atlassian. You'll see some of the things here that came out of Ship It. So Jira Service Desk started as a Ship It project. There's a lot of really neat features and kind of niceties that have come out of Ship It and they integrate in the product. So it does work really well. And I'm going to end it there. We have 2 minutes left. I don't know if we have any questions, but you know, big thank you to everybody from the ISOS team for participating today, and of course, everybody that's on the call. Really glad you guys tuned in. And Danny, I'll hand it over to you for questions if there are any.
Yeah, let me take a look and see if there's some questions. I think I have one, if I can actually say Expo Orients for once. I promised everybody that I would say that correctly before we stop. Let me stop sharing real quick so I can get to some of this. There is a question about next year. So somebody's curious about when Summit will be in 2020. And I believe that's going to be, they're going to move it up in the calendar just a bit. They're going to move that up into the end of March, early April. So I believe March 29th or March 30th, April 1st and 2nd. So you can definitely find that online by going out to the Summit site. They should post that already, and that'll give you an opportunity to go out there and see some of those videos that everybody mentioned today. So I don't see any other questions. We're right at the top of the hour. I think we planned that pretty good. I want to again echo what Thad said. Thanks to everybody for your interest and attendance today. I know everybody at ISOS is looking forward to next year's Summit, and hopefully we see you all there. So thanks, everybody.